Do you know the original story of your childhood cartoons? Part 2. Today, I want to take you back to the sweet memories of your childhood. We all grew up with cartoons that felt like a world full of adventures and imagination. But have you ever wondered if there are darker and more complex truths hidden behind those colorful images and innocent stories? If you dare, stay with us until the end of the video. We all remember the Scooby-Doo story as a group of curious teenage friends going on adventures and solving scary mysteries. But the real story is much scarier. It starts with Shaggy finding Scooby-Doo at his doorstep and bringing him inside to show his friends. When Velma sees Scooby, she connects with another dimension and remembers a different life. It's like meeting herself in another world and recalling their adventures. She remembers that Scooby has killed them before, over and over, creating a new world each time. Realizing that Velma remembers everything and knows Scooby isn't a normal dog, Scooby kills Velma, Shaggy, and all their friends again, creating a new world from scratch. Watch the video to see for yourself.
I love you. You know that, right? I love all of you. But I don't understand why you keep remembering. We'd go solving mysteries together. It was simple, fun. But you started overcomplicating things.
You know, I never really thought of it before, but why can Scooby talk?
Now that you mention it, it is a bit odd.
Yeah, like, what's up with that, man?
Jeepers, Velma, you might be onto something.
And suddenly, the fun was over. So I took what remained, and I rebuilt you. I rebuilt the world, and we were back to our classic adventures. But you started to remember. Again, and again, and again.
If you've seen Tarzan as a kid, you might remember a pretty intense scene with Clayton's fate. But did you know the original Tarzan story is even harsher and doesn't end happily? Remember Kayla, the kind gorilla who raised Tarzan? In the book, she gets killed by cannibals. After she's gone, the other male gorillas who saw Tarzan as a threat attack him and force him out of their group. That's when Tarzan meets Jane Porter, her dad, and William Cecil Clayton. Here's the twist. Clayton is Tarzan's cousin. When Tarzan's parents died, he inherited all their wealth. So when Clayton and Jane leave Africa, they use that money to start a new life and leave Tarzan behind. The original story has a lot more drama, like Tarzan's parents' death and his iconic loincloth. A tale as old as time sounds romantic, but if it hadn't been changed to the Disney movie we know and love, there's a good chance you might not be as much of a Beauty and the Beast fan. Originally, this story was created to ease the fear of arranged marriages. Let's delve into the disturbing real story behind Beauty and the Beast. The original version of this story, written by Madame Gabrielle Suzanne de Villeneuve, was based on the real lives of Petrus Gonsalves and his wife Catherine. Petrus suffered from hypertrichosis, a condition that caused excessive hair growth all over his body, and he was kept as a curiosity in the French royal court. He and Catherine became a famous couple. Another version of the story was written by Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont, aimed at teaching young girls lessons. Beaumont's goal was not to empower young women, but to show that arranged marriages weren't as bad as they seemed. The story gradually evolved into the version we know today. In the Disney version, Belle makes an independent decision to save her father and sacrifices her own freedom in exchange for his. However, in the original story, Belle ultimately accepts her situation and falls in love with the Beast, which was not unlike young girls who were forced to marry older men. One theory is that the Beast represents Belle's fears. Once she confronts and accepts these fears, she can see the Beast for who he truly is. Disney transformed this story to show that Belle's compassion and intelligence helped the Beast become a better version of himself. Disney has successfully turned a tale about female oppression in arranged marriages into an inspiring lesson about seeing others for who they truly are. You've probably read, heard, or seen the famous story of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. But have you ever wondered why it was written? Did you know that Alice was a real person? Yes, it's true. The real Alice was Alice Liddell. Alice's father, Henry Liddell, was friends with Charles Dodgson, who used the pen name Lewis Carroll. Carroll was an English writer, mathematician, and photographer. The story started in 1856, when Lewis was on a rowboat trip with Alice and her sisters down the River Thames. Little Alice asked Lewis to tell them a story, which she often did. So, Lewis started telling a story about a girl named Alice who lived in a fantasy world. The children loved it, and Alice asked Lewis to write it down for her. Known for being bossy and adventurous, Alice got her wish. Over the year, Lewis wrote the story and even made illustrations for it. He gave the manuscript to Alice as a Christmas present, calling it Alice's Adventures Underground. Later, he added more chapters and published it. The book was a huge success and became famous worldwide. Lewis Carroll stayed friends with the Liddell family for years, but their friendship eventually ended. Some think Lewis had romantic feelings for Alice but tried to hide them, which might have led to him being unwelcome in the Liddell family. The exact reasons are unclear. As an adult, Alice's life was not as magical. She married Reginald Hargreaves, an English cricket player, at age 28. They had 3 sons, Alan, Leopold, and Carol. Alice lost 2 of her sons, Alan and Leopold, during World War I. After her husband died in 1926, Alice had financial struggles and decided to sell the manuscript that Lewis Carroll had written for her. In her later years, Alice embraced her connection to the famous story more than she did when she was younger. She passed away in 1934 at the age of 82. Her gravestone reads, "The Alice in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland." Peter Pan was first mentioned in a short story in the book The Little White Bird by J.M. Barrie. In this story, he is described as a magical baby who escaped from being human and flies around with fairies. This version of Peter Pan is only a week old and remains a baby forever. Later, Peter Pan appeared in the play Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up. The popularity of this play led Barrie to write the book Peter and Wendy, which tells the same story as the play but in book format. The story of Peter Pan begins with Wendy Darling, who learns that her childhood won't last forever. Peter Pan, who secretly listens to her bedtime stories, is spotted by the family's dog and loses his shadow. Peter returns with Tinker Bell to retrieve his shadow, waking Wendy in the process. He invites Wendy and her 2 brothers, Michael and John, to Neverland. In Neverland, they encounter the Lost Boys and Peter's enemy, Captain Hook. Wendy is initially mistaken for an enemy by the Lost Boys and is shot down by an arrow but survives. She takes on the role of mother to the Lost Boys. Peter Pan sometimes kills the Lost Boys to thin the herd or when they get too old, and he occasionally feeds them imaginary food because he can't distinguish between real and make-believe. Wendy, Michael, and John go on adventures in Neverland, including rescuing Tiger Lily from drowning and battling Captain Hook. Eventually, they decide to return home but are captured by pirates on their way. Peter Pan rescues them, defeats Captain Hook, and takes control of the pirate ship to sail back to London, returning the children to their home. The story ends with Peter returning to Neverland, forgetting about Wendy over time. However, he agrees to take her back to Neverland for a week every spring for spring cleaning. This cycle continues with Wendy's daughter and then her granddaughter. To start, let's review Disney's version of Hades. He first appeared in Disney's 1997 hit Hercules, where he's unhappy with his role assigned by Zeus. He plots to overthrow Zeus by kidnapping and killing Hercules and releasing the Titans. In the movie, Hades acts like a manipulative, merciless car salesman with two minions named Pain and Panic and a three-headed dog, Cerberus. Despite his cunning and ruthless nature, he never breaks a deal once it's made. In Greek mythology, Hades is very different. He wasn't assigned the underworld by Zeus, he got it by drawing lots. While he might not have been thrilled about it, there's no indication he held a grudge. Hades was the god of the dead, not death itself, and Greeks avoided mentioning him to prevent attracting his attention. He had many titles, including Clymenus, notorious, Polydegmon, receiver of many, and Pluto, the rich one, because his domain was believed to be under the earth, where precious minerals and crops came from. Sacrifices to Hades often involved dark-colored animals, and the person offering the sacrifice would avert their face to avoid being identified by the god. Hades was strict and just, ensuring the souls of the dead stayed in the underworld. His intimidating presence was necessary for his role. Despite his stern nature, he was fair and never broke a deal once it was made. The most important story involving Hades is the abduction of Persephone. Hades fell in love with Persephone, daughter of Zeus and Demeter. Knowing Demeter wouldn't approve, he asked Zeus for permission and then kidnapped Persephone. Demeter, in her grief, caused the earth to stop producing food until Persephone was returned. Zeus intervened, and Hades agreed to let Persephone go, but tricked her into eating a pomegranate seed, which meant she had to spend part of each year in the underworld. This myth explains the changing seasons. This part has also come to an end. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. Please subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts below. Goodbye until the next episode.